I'm Avery Miller, CEO of Sage Tech. This morning, 2 resumes landed on my desk. Nothing unusual about that except they belong to my mother and my sister. Neither of them knows I run this company. Neither of them even remembers what I used to dream about. 15 years ago, I was 17. I'd just received the biggest news of my life, a full ride to MIT's computer science program. I still remember the email blinking on my cracked old laptop. I screamed. My mom came running into the room, Charlotte trailing behind her. I shouted that I got in, that they gave me the scholarship, that I'd be going to MIT. Mom's face froze. Charlotte went pale. I thought they were shocked, maybe even happy. But then Mom asked me to show her the email. That's when Charlotte said something I didn't understand at first. She said there must have been a mistake, that she applied to MIT. I said I applied too. I had worked on the essays for weeks. Mom helped me mail everything. Or so I thought. Charlotte kept staring at me. Then her voice cracked. She said she switched our applications. She used my essays, my scores, my dream. I turned to Mom, confused. She didn't look surprised. She said Charlotte needed this more than I did, that I was better off staying close to home. That community college would suit me fine. I stood there frozen, like the floor had just disappeared under me. I said, "You knew?" And she said, "It's already done." That night, I lay in bed listening through the walls. I heard Mom say I'd get over it, that I always settled eventually. And that was the moment something inside me split in 2 timbre split. One part of me broke. The other part started to build. I ended up at North Valley Community College. No dorm rooms. No campus bookstore. Just beige walls. Broken vending machines. And kids trying to survive. I worked nights at a bakery. Sometimes mornings at a gas station. My laptop was so old it wheezed when I opened 3 tabs. Meanwhile, Charlotte sent group photos from MIT, her in dorm lounges. And her in project teams? Her captions always said things like "finally where I belong." Mom posted everyone. No one said my name. At holidays, the family gatherings were the worst. Mom would smile at our relatives and say I was being practical, that I had a good head on my shoulders and didn't need all that fancy school stuff. She'd glance sideways when she said it, like I was the underachieving cousin they didn't want to mention. I remember one Thanksgiving when Charlotte showed up halfway through dinner. She strutted in wearing her MIT hoodie, gave me a quick look, and said, "Still doing local classes?" I just nodded. I didn't want to talk about my Tuesday night shifts or the intro Python textbook I was working through. Later that night, she pulled me aside in the hallway, said she'd heard I was learning to code. Then she actually laughed, said it was cute, like watching a toddler try to run a marathon. I didn't answer. I just kept thinking about all the nights I'd fallen asleep over my laptop. The calluses on my fingers. The smell of yeast that clung to my skin. I was building something. She didn't see it yet, but I knew. Then I found out the truth. A friend of a friend mentioned Charlotte had dropped out in her 2nd year. She never told anyone. She faked the graduation photos. The scholarship she stole from me. The one she said was her big break, it went nowhere. She wasted it. And still, they treated her like gold, and treated me like I was made of dust. My 2nd year at community college, I got a job at a pizza shop near campus. I worked the late shift. That's when I met Serena. She was a delivery driver who always had earbuds in and a laptop in her backpack. One night during our break, I was trying to debug some messy loop logic. Serena leaned over my screen and said, "You're 4, loop's never gonna close like that." It blinked. She sat beside me and rewrote the function in 2 lines. I said thanks. She said, "You're learning. That's what matters." From that day on, we became a team. She showed me how to use GitHub. I taught her how to clean up her front-end code. We shared slices of pizza and secondhand textbooks. When it was slow, we'd sit in the back and work on mini projects. We called ourselves Code and Crust. It was dumb, but it kept us going. I'd get off at midnight, crash for 4 hours, then head to class. Every small breakthrough felt like oxygen. We weren't fast, but we were hungry. And hungry people build empires. A few months later, Serena and I were at a quiet bar on a Thursday night. Laptops open, arguing over hash maps. I was explaining a sorting algorithm when a guy at the next table leaned in and said, "That's a clean explanation." "You teach?" I said no. "Just learning." He asked me to solve a recursive problem on a napkin. I did. Then I optimized it. He smiled, introduced himself Jake, junior partner at a new startup, and gave me a card. He said they were hiring developers and needed people who could think fast and code lean. That bar napkin, that was my first job interview. 2 weeks later, I started working part-time in a real office. Not bad for someone who was supposed to settle for less. The startup job turned into a full-time role. I was building features, fixing bugs, even leading small teams. But I was still the girl without a degree from the right place. Meetings happened without me. Decisions skipped over me. I got used to making my presence known through output. At home, it didn't matter. Mom said it sounded temporary. Charlotte said the real roles went to people with actual credentials. They called what I did contract work. Even though I was a lead dev, they still thought I was playing. The day I decided to leave was the day I realized I knew more than my manager. I asked for a promotion. He said, "Not yet." I said, "Fine. I'll build something better." Serena and I stayed up all night sketching ideas. We pitched them to Jake. He passed. Said it was risky. So we found someone else who didn't think risk was a dirty word. A woman named Samira VC from New York heard us out and wrote the first check. Sage Tech was born on my living room floor with 3 people and 2 laptops. When I told Mom, she laughed. Said I didn't know what I was doing. That Charlotte had business sense, and I was just impulsive. Said I'd lose everything. She didn't know that by then. We'd already secured our first round. That our beta app was being tested at 2 local schools. That we had fire in our veins and nothing to lose. They called me late. They called me little. But they never called me ready. That was their mistake. It was just another Monday morning. Coffee half drunk. Inbox overflowing. And Colin standing in my doorway holding a manila folder like it might explode. I looked up. He said, "You're going to want to see these." Inside were 2 resumes. I scanned the names. My breath caught. Laura Miller. Charlotte Miller. My mother and my sister. They had applied for 2 open admin positions at Sage Tech. They didn't know I was the CEO. Colin was watching me closely. I asked how they applied. He said, "LinkedIn. Standard posting. They don't know who's behind the company. They just know it's growing. And they're desperate." Desperate. That word made something sharp twist inside me. I flipped through their applications. Mom had a 5-year gap and listed volunteer work she never did. Charlotte's resume listed 3 companies, none lasted more than a year. I recognized one. She'd been fired from that place for plagiarism. I knew because the CTO who replaced her once tried to poach me. Colin asked if I wanted HR to handle it. I said no. I'll do the interviews myself. He paused. Both of them separate. I said, "Mom first. Then Charlotte." Serena walked in as he left. She looked at the folder. Her eyebrows rose. I nodded. She said, "This is your moment." I didn't smile. I said, "It's not about revenge. It's about closure." Then I corrected myself. Maybe it's a little of both. When she walked into the waiting room, she didn't recognize me. I was behind a tinted glass panel. Watching on the monitor, she was wearing an old blazer. Sitting stiffly, clutching her bag like it held her dignity. Colin led her into my office. I stood as she entered. She looked up. And for a second, her smile faltered. "Avery," she whispered. But I didn't smile. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Please. Have a seat. She sat down slowly. Her eyes scanned the awards on the wall. The city skyline behind me. This is your office, I nodded. I'm the founder and CEO of Sage Tech. Her fingers trembled slightly. I opened her resume on my screen. You applied for an administrative position. She looked embarrassed. Said things had been hard. That she'd been between opportunities. I asked about the volunteer work she listed. She looked down. She said she needed the job. That I was successful now. That I could help? I kept my tone steady. Do you remember what you told me when I got into MIT? Her face fell. She said she thought Charlotte needed it more. I leaned forward. I said, you didn't believe in me. You erased me. And now you're here because you need something. I'm not 17 anymore. And this isn't your house. She reached across the desk. Avery. Please. I pulled back. In this office, I go by Miss Miller. I stood up. Thank you for your application. Unfortunately, we've decided to move in a different direction. Her face went pale. She stood slowly. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I met her eyes. No more than you enjoyed watching me struggle. The difference is, I earned my place to judge. She didn't look back as Colin led her out. Charlotte walked in like she owned the room. High heels. Designer blazer. Phone in hand. Then she saw me. She froze mid-step. Holy crap, she said. I raised an eyebrow. Language. This is a workplace. She sat slowly. Mom just called, she said. I didn't believe her. That you're the CEO. The one she's begging for work from. I opened her resume. 3 jobs in 2 years. Each ending abruptly. I pointed to the gaps. She shifted uncomfortably. Said she'd had personal challenges. I asked if one of those challenges involved taking credit for a teammate's codebase. She went still. That wasn't what it looked like. She muttered. I looked her in the eye. Like how MIT wasn't what it looked like. Like how you didn't steal my application. My test scores. My scholarship. She said she was young. Pressured. That mom expected her to be something big. I stood and walked to the window. I said, you had every advantage and still threw it away. You don't know what it's like to struggle. Serena stepped in then. She said, I watched your sister sleep on my couch between shifts. Where were you? Getting blowouts with Mom. Charlotte's voice cracked. I've changed. I'm not that person anymore. I turned back. Then why are you still lying on your resume? She started to cry. Asked what I was going to do. I said, nothing. You've done enough to yourself. This company was built on integrity. Not shortcuts. I called for Colin. As she walked out, I said, one more thing. Remember that scholarship you stole? I've created a new fund. 10 full rides to MIT for low-income coders. You know what I called it? The second spark. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Except maybe the people who waste the first. 2 days later. My name was trending. Not for our latest software release. Not for a product launch. For drama. Family betrayal. The headlines were wild. Local tech mogul humiliates mother. CEO uses power to reject her sister. I didn't respond. I let them scream into the void. Until Serena burst into my office with her phone. Mom had given an exclusive interview. Said I had a vendetta. That I built my whole empire out of bitterness. The board called a meeting. Some were nervous. Others were angry. But I came prepared. I handed out documents. Proof of our hiring policy. Notes from the interviews. Footage of both conversations. Then I brought up the bigger reason we were all here. I launched a presentation about Sage Tech's next initiative. The Second Spark Scholarship. A fund for students like me, who had dreams stolen, buried, or ignored. Who needed one person to say, I see you. I said I wasn't going to play the media's game. I wasn't here to defend myself against people who never defended me. I was here to build something better. By the time I stepped out of the boardroom, I felt lighter. The press still buzzed. My inbox was chaos. But I was done letting other people tell my story. Mom made a public apology. She didn't send it to me, but she posted it online. Said she let ambition cloud her love. Said she didn't just hurt me. She hurt Charlotte, too. Said she was selling the house and donating the money to the Second Spark Fund. I didn't know what to feel. But I didn't call her. I didn't need more words. What I needed was forward motion. We started reviewing scholarship applications the next week. Pages and pages of stories. Kids working night shifts. Teaching themselves from library computers. Single moms studying between diaper changes. One girl stood out. Nia, 17. First in her family to finish high school. Said her dad told her college was for rich kids. She applied to MIT anyway. Got in. Lost the scholarship when her family refused to co-sign her loan. I invited her to Sage Tech. Showed her around. Then handed her a letter. Full ride. Plus a paid internship. She burst into tears. I told her, "You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Just build something they never saw coming." That Friday, I went back to the pizza shop. The same one where Serena and I used to code on napkins. The manager Carmen was still there. Still wore her apron like armor. Still made the best garlic knots in town. I told her about the scholarship. About Sage Tech. About what we'd built. She cried a little and said she always knew I'd do something. That I was quiet but sharp. I asked her to join the selection committee. She said yes without blinking. That night, the team came over. Serena, Colin, our engineers, our first hire. We ordered food, spread out on the floor, and read more applications. We laughed. We cried. We saw pieces of ourselves in every line. Then I got a text from Charlotte. She wrote, "Can we talk? Not about jobs or apologies. Just the future?" I showed it to Serena. She raised an eyebrow. I said, "I'll meet her. Not to fix the past. Just to see what's possible." We cleaned up the food containers. Carmen packed some extra knots for me to take. As I left, I looked back at the team, sitting shoulder to shoulder in my living room. People who believed in something. In me? I walked to the corner diner where Charlotte was waiting. I didn't know what would happen. But I wasn't scared. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even exton. It's building something that opens doors. And leaving them open for someone else.